Hello everyone and welcome to You Just Got an iPad, Now What? Presented by Chris Casal, brought to you by SimpleK12. I'm Kimberly Warner from SimpleK12. I have just a couple of quick things to go over with you before I turn things over to Chris today. We do have a bunch of upcoming webinars here at SimpleK12. We do about 20 to 30 a month at least. I hope you'll join us for some upcoming webinars. Members, look inside the teacher learning community for all live webinars, on-demand webinars, and additional resources. If you're joining us as a guest today, you can join us at upcoming live webinars for free by registering on our website, simplek12.com/webinars, and I hope to see you there. I did just send out a tweet inviting my Twitter followers to join in this session. Now this session is technically filled to capacity, but we do have a couple upcoming sessions scheduled and on the website, so your Twitter followers can join us at those. Or you're welcome to join us again as long as you can grab that registration spot before they fill up. So of course put in that link so your Twitter followers can find the registration pages, and always tweet with the hashtag #SK12 so we can all collaborate together on Twitter. Now we also have a back channel discussion today, simplek12.titanpad.com/155. This is where as a live attendee you can chat with other attendees and take notes during the session. Now it is optional, so if you want to just sit back, relax, enjoy the presentation today, that's perfectly fine. But if you'd like to talk to other attendees, I encourage you to check it out. Now I am Kimberly, as I said, the community manager here at SimpleK12. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. So glad to have you. And one thing I hope you take advantage of today during the live session is to ask questions directly to our presenter, Chris. So if you have a question for Chris today or a comment, you want to make sure to put that in the GoToWebinar questions box. There's a GoToWebinar panel usually to the top right of your screen. It tends to auto-collapse, so just expand it right out with that red-orange arrow. Put your questions or comments in there. If it's something for Chris, I will get it to him. If it's something for me, maybe about SimpleK12 or your membership, I can help you with that. And of course, you can always reach us inside the community forums and on Twitter at SimpleK12 and at TLC_EDU. Now, before we get started today, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a title poll. So please choose the option that best describes you and your role in your school or area. And if you do have to choose that other field, please let us know in the questions box what that means to you. So while you do that, I'll tell you a little bit more about Chris. He is a technology teacher and coordinator for PS10, which is a New York City public school, and he's been doing that for around 10 years, and he is involved in the largest iPad project in the U.S. And he's very involved in teaching other educators how to use iPads for their own professional development. He's done a handful of webinars on iPads for us. It's always great to have him back, and we're excited to kind of go back to the basics today as he explains to us all really what to do, the foundation of how to get started with your iPad. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him back on. Hi, Chris. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
And I'll quickly just share these poll results. We have about half teachers today and a good amount of people choosing other: instructional tech specialist, community and family outreach coordinator for a school district, instructional technology resource teacher, just speech language pathologist. It's a good mix of people here today, and I'm sure they're all excited to get started. So Chris, I'm going to hand things over to you now.
Perfect. So, you just got an iPad. Now what? Now there's my contact information, and I do put it up because I'm more than willing to have contact beyond this with anybody, so feel free to email me at any time. I will have this contact information up at the end as well. So you got an iPad. Congratulations. Or maybe possibly you're getting one, because of course some people might have put in a pre-order for the new iPad and it hasn't yet arrived. So now what? And yes, this is a blank slide. What are you going to do? It is a blank slate in a lot of ways. The first thing that's going to help you sort of give context to this blank slate and help you start forming this idea is who owns this device. Is it yours? Is it the districts, the schools? Because a lot of that ownership is going to determine how you use it and how you set it up and how you configure it. So if it's a personal device, which it might be, a lot of schools don't necessarily have the funding to provide iPads for staff, but they're allowing people to bring in their own personal devices. A lot of schools or districts are also allowing students to bring in their own devices because it allows and affords a technology connectivity without the expense when people are allowed to bring their own device. Now, if it is a personal device, you might already have an iTunes account, or creating a new account is very easy to do. Now, if it's a professional device, what I mean by that is it's been issued. The school bought it for you, the district bought it for you. It's not coming out of your personal funds. There might be some restrictions on it. Some schools are pre-loading the iPads with account information and certain apps, and the individual getting it doesn't have a whole lot of control over that. So you may be being issued an iPad that's pre-configured and you can't customize it. Or you might have specific regulations on how you can use it. You can put your own account on it, but there might be some stipulations as to how that account needs to be managed. Now, a lot of that, I know there was about 10% to 20% of the people on that survey are sort of district level technology people, administration, and that's generally going to come from that level. The acceptable internet use policy might have a caveat, or there might be an addendum to that that would outline proper staff use in creating an iTunes account. So we have a lot of iPads at PS10, and my understanding is we were one of the first schools to really go full bore with giving them out to teachers, and we're essentially a one-to-one teacher environment. Every pedagogical staff member has one. And when we did this 2 years ago, we were sort of forging new ground and trying to figure it out for ourselves. So we provide the iPads for staff. So we set up our own guidelines, as the Department of Ed didn't have any specific iPad, iTunes guidelines at the time. So that you were only allowed to sync them to their classroom computer, and then of course as iOS 5 came out, which was Apple's cloud, the iCloud, you could sync to that. Even if you had your own personal iTunes account, you had to create a new account using your Department of Education email. That way there was at least the sense of propriety that it is a Department of Ed device, you're creating a Department of Ed account, and it's keeping your personal and your professional items separate. Now, the New York City and New York State have not approved any volume purchasing plans. The App Store, they have not approved gift cards. There is no way to use New York City, state, or city funds for apps. And we knew that going in. So we said, you need to use a personal credit card. And it was one of those give and takes that we had with the teachers. You're going to get this iPad, but you need to use your own personal credit card for apps. Most of what we'll tell you to use are free, and no reimbursement for anything you might buy. Now again, a lot of what's on this slide might change based on your particular school's setup, your district's regulations. I know there's a number of schools where the principal controls them all, and it's on the principal's credit card, and everyone goes into the principal's office to get app approval and to download and to sync on a daily basis. That's that school's policy. I know there are some schools where they control it via their teacher's iMac server, where they push out permissions and they buy apps to one location, and all the iPads are generic. So again, a lot of this is going to come from your city, state, district, or school as to how to set it up. So once you do, there's a number of startup guides. And I realize that these are long URLs, and I'm going to leave them up there for a second, but I will post these slides in the teacher learning community at the end. But they're pretty good descriptive walkthroughs and step-by-steps of how to set up iPads. Not a lot has changed from the iPad 1 to the iPad 2 to the new iPad, which no, I have not received yet, but hopefully one of these months after the back order. But they're good sort of reference points. And I refer back to things that other people have created a lot, because With something like the iPad, it's all the same, whether it's a Wi-Fi only, a Verizon, a Sprint, however you might have this on a 3G network. So there's no use trying to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of walkthroughs, and a lot of tutorials on the basics of getting started with an iTunes account, pulling this thing out of the box. I will do a little bit, and I will touch a little bit on the startup. And this is, you turn it on out of the box, this is the screen. You notice at the bottom, I have the URL of where I took the screenshots from. Right above that, you just follow the steps. Slide to set up. It gives you, you get to choose your language. It's going to default to English. Get to choose your country region. It's going to default to the US. Now, it gives you this option with iOS 5, which is the new operating system. iOS, little I, capital O, capital S, is the operating system of the iPad, much like Windows XP, Windows 7, Lion, Tiger, all those Apple operating systems. What's nice about the new iPad is you can set it up as a new iPad, or as you can see, restore. Now, setting these up as new ones allows you to then go to the cloud and take away the need to sync it to a machine. I like that because if we're giving these out to the teachers as a one-to-one device, they might move classrooms and they might have a different computer in the new classroom. I like the cloud. My own work one is set up to the cloud, and I'm in the computer lab, and hopefully I'm not going to leave the computer lab, but it's still set up to the cloud because I feel it makes life a lot easier that I don't have to plug into a machine to update, to sync, to do any of those things. iOS 5 allows complete wireless updating, backup, syncing, all of that, and I highly recommend you go that route. The caveat being, however, if your district or school has a different policy. Find My iPad is extremely useful. You should have that on because if you happen to misplace it, put it down, your room's a little bit messy, you don't know where it is, you can log on to Apple's website, log in with your information, and it will send a noise to the iPad. You can lock the iPad remotely. You can erase it. So if you happen to lose it, happens to get lost, it's a very handy tool to have turned on. And it comes default. Now here's the Apple ID section. This is where you're going to create a new one if you don't have one. This is where you might sign in one if you already do. This is going to be, again, based on your particular location and what the policy is. Are you signing in with an existing personal ID that you're allowed to use, an existing official one? Are you creating a new official one? This is where you do that. And then through this process, there's a number of other screens that I'm not showing you that are essentially just enter your personal information here, agree to the policy terms of use, things like that. Type in your ID, type in your password. These are the diagnostics. Some people don't send, some people do the automatically send. I don't think it's necessarily that big a deal. In theory, it's helping Apple. You fix the product, tweak the product. A lot of people have privacy issues with it where they think that Apple's stealing their data. And that may or may not be true, but a lot of what I do on the iPad is sort of generic, and the apps that I use don't have student information in them. So if Apple is getting some data from my iPad, they're not getting a whole lot of confidential data, if any. So then you get to this screen, you get the 4 checks, you get to start using your iPad. And this is your start home screen.
Now, Chris, a couple of quick questions before
Yes.
we go any farther. Mary's asking, can you tell if your iPad is already set up for Find My iPad?
So yes, if you've already done, if you're at this screen, let's say your home screen, and you've already done the whole setup process, the way you do it is in your settings, and you're putting me on the spot. Haha. It's under, give me a second, it's under your mail, contacts, and calendars, I believe. And it's under, I'll have to look for it. It's in your settings. It used to be in the old versions, it used to be under an iCloud account, which actually it still is, yes. So in your mail, contacts, and calendars, originally it was Mobile Me, and they've changed it from Mobile Me to iCloud. So in that mail, contacts, and calendars, there should be an iCloud account. And if there isn't, you can add an iCloud account. Basically what that is it's just your iTunes ID. And once you add that with your password, you get the full list of options: mail, contacts, calendars, reminders, all the little functions you can toggle on and off with that account. The last one on the list being Find My iPad. And that's
So,
where you would turn that
so
on.
it's just a setting you can go change later.
Correct.
And same with, a lot of these settings, location services, things like that.
Correct.
And a final question before I let you move on here. Julia's asking, can we use the iOS cloud if we don't have Macs in our district?
Yes. That's the nice thing about iOS 5 and the iCloud setup, is that it is not reliant at all on desktop computers. And I've done a number of these setups now, and I have a computer lab. I have 32 iMacs. I have an iMac and a MacBook in every classroom. Teachers don't sync them to their machines or my machines. We are 110% Mac-based, and I have all my teachers who get the new iPads synced to the cloud. Because it's great. You open up the box, you go through those basic startup screens, you sync it to the cloud, and that's it. It'll back up once a day. Whatever information's on there, it backs up. If you were to get a new iPad during that particular setup, I'm going to jump back real quick. You can do that restore. You can sort of see it down here, the restore from iCloud backup. Basically means if you backed it to the cloud and it fell, it got erased, you got a new one, you could back it up from the cloud, and when you get to this screen, this home screen, all of your information exactly as it was on your old iPad is going to be there. So no, you definitely can do it regardless of your desktop environment. And that's what's great about the iPad, and that's what's great about the iCloud, is it's completely iPad specific and really doesn't care about your other computing environments. Hope that answered the question.
Yes, thanks.
All right, I will move forward. So now your initial use. You have it, you're on the home screen. What do we do with it? A number of things. First thing, configure your internet connection. It is all Wi-Fi. That's wireless internet. Wireless fidelity is what Wi-Fi stands for. So it's not like a laptop where you have the opportunity to plug it into the wall. Now, is there a proxy server? That's related to your Wi-Fi. A proxy server is essentially a firewall. You may or may not have one of those. Once you get your Wi-Fi configured, then you can set up your mail account. I like to do it in that order because then at least I know that things are working. Then you can browse the App Store, look for some apps. So I'm going to run through a handful of good free apps to start with. So there's some free apps on this right there, like Twitter. It's a great app. CNN, Zeit, Flipboard, Dropbox, Digo, and Evernote. There's some worthwhile apps to purchase like Goodreader, Notability, Remoter, Splashtop. And again, a lot of these apps I'm going to have listed, and I'm going to show you some screenshots of in a few minutes. But I wanted to just put up a slide with some ideas to get you started if you're attending this webinar and have a brand new iPad with nothing on that home screen and you have no idea where to start. Those free apps are some great ways just to get you started with browsing the App Store, finding some apps, doing some searches, downloading some free things. And of course, you can browse the web. Safari, which is the web tool in the bottom left-hand corner right here. This is your icon. That's your internet. It works just like a desktop browser. So if you're actually an Apple user and you've used Safari on the desktop, it works the same way. If you're a Windows user and you're familiar with Explorer or Firefox, it works basically the same way. It's extremely reminiscent of a desktop browser. So now, what is this thing? What are we doing all this? You know, it's good, and I always like to start out with my teachers of saying, let's think about what this is, and let's not just say, oh, it's an iPad, I can do stuff with it. So a lot of the first PDs that I run with my staff, and whenever we issue iPads to staff, they do 4 hours of PD. And a lot of those first 2 hours are sort of just setting some things up and just becoming familiar with the interface, with how things work, because it's touch-based. It's not a mouse, it's not a keyboard. And then we always talk about what we're going to do, what we want to do. What, if anything, do you need to do? What are you sitting there saying to yourself, I need to do this thing? Because then when I'm sitting there with teachers, I can say, okay, you are hoping you can do X. Well, here's how you can do X. You'd also like to do Y. Well, here's how you can do Y. And maybe they say, you know what, but I really need right now to do Z. I can say, all right, if I don't know the answer to that, we can sit there and we can work it out. And it's a great way, and there's a lot of ways to experiment to become comfortable with what is for a lot of people a very new computing environment. So configuring the Wi-Fi is where I always like to start because it is a mobile wireless device. It's sort of the whole base premise of the iPad. So that Wi-Fi information is going to come from your IT. It's going to come from your school computer teacher, your technology coordinator, your district level person. Somebody has it. I happen to be the person in our building that has it, but so does the principal and a number of other people. It's going to depend on your particular environment who's doing it. And for those of you listening to this who might be district level technology people who are considering a rollout, or school or district level administrators considering a rollout, you might want to think about a way to easily disseminate that information so that everyone's not hounding you for the wireless protocol for your school or district. And that protocol, that's the security. There's multiple security preferences. The iPad is great about handling them all, but every school and every district is going to be different. We, at my school, the city, New York City, determines our network name, network protocol. They handle all that. We're WEP. At home, I'm a bit of a dork, so I went a little bit crazier, and I went with WPA2. Different protocol, different password lengths, and things like that. So that's going to be dependent on whoever set up and manages your network. Same with the proxy server. Are sites blocked at your school? If you go to a website and you get an error message saying that site's not allowed, that means you're running through a firewall or a proxy server, and you need to know that information to allow the iPad to connect. So in your general settings, which is the little cog wheel option, or in your settings, sorry, you have, under the settings, you have Wi-Fi, which is circled. Now, that happens to be my home network, because I didn't want to show you what my school network was. I'd probably get talked to sternly by my IT department. So you notice, all the networks that are visible at my house, and they're all locked, and they have padlocks next to them. If you ever see one that's unopened, then that means that it's, an open network. Now, if you don't see it, like mine at school is hidden, which means it doesn't pop up. So I actually have to check, or I have to click on that other box in order to manually type it in. And that's a security setting of our IT staff, because they don't want people to be able to scan and find the school's wireless settings. So you have to manually type it in. So this is that other network area where you would type in the network name, you would choose the security, do the password. Again, that's coming from whoever's in charge of that for your building. If you have any laptops in your building that are wireless, it's going to be the exact same information. Once you're in, and once you're connected, and you'll know you're connected because you'll have the name up there in that top left, that CMCW, that's telling me that I'm connected to the Wi-Fi. And when I'm in, back here, I have these little blue arrows to the right of the Wi-Fi name. Those little blue arrows are going to give you the more detailed network settings for each of these. When you come in there, that's what you get. So it's going to ask you your proxy settings. You may not have proxies. You may have no firewall. You may be totally unrestricted. But you might. Ours, we have two different proxy settings. We have a manual proxy way to access the internet. We also have an auto proxy configuration. So I happen to know that, and I walk my staff through putting that in. And if they, I actually have a document made up that's accessible to staff so they don't have to come to me. They know where to find the information online on our internet about how to access the outside network so they can configure it themselves. So once you have your Wi-Fi name in there, once you have your password in there, if you have proxies, your proxies are set, you should set up your email. So I feel like one of the best things about the iPad is the communication ability, okay? And pretty much any email that you have, any platform that you use is supported in one way or another by the iPad's options. But again, you might have to contact your local IT staff, your school or district level people to get the specifics, especially if you use a platform like Outlook. You might have to get some of the specific Outlook settings from them. So back in those settings, a little midway down from the Wi-Fi, you have the mail, contacts, and calendars. You notice iCloud. You can get a free basic email from Apple. There's Microsoft Exchange, Gmail, so on and so forth. Microsoft Exchange is actually a setting that works pretty broadly. A lot of schools don't use Microsoft Exchange as a platform, but the way the iPad sees it and configures to that particular platform, like I believe Lotus is one, you can use the Microsoft Exchange setting within the iPad to connect to another one. Like for instance, about a year ago, if you set up Gmail here using the Gmail option, you would only get mail. You wouldn't get your contacts or calendars. But if you did a Microsoft Exchange account with your Gmail information, it would sync your contacts and calendars as well. So there's some nuances that are going to be dependent on what your school or district uses, and you can get those nuances from that IT department. So here's like the Exchange one, you know, your email, your domain, username. The username might not be the username. My username is ccasal at schools, blah, blah, blah. But my username for the Exchange server is ccasal at central. Because of the way the Microsoft Outlook works, there's domains and then there's subdomains, and there's usernames and sort of usernames on domains. Again, it can get a little complicated, but there are IT staff who know this. And it's just a matter of a simple phone call. And if you happen to be somebody who might be in charge of this, as I was saying, like a school or district level person who's anticipating a rollout, figure out the settings for yourself, your Wi-Fi settings, your mail settings, make a little quick document outlining what those are, and then just have those accessible, and it'll make things very easy for you and your staff and any users within your organization to basically handle this for themselves. Once your account is set, and that's my ps10.org account, my main contact one, I can go in and I can set these settings. So I have mail, contacts, and calendars synced, and that's great because no matter where I am, whether I'm on my desktop, my iPad, I can see all the people within my organization. I enter a calendar event on my iPad, I sit at my desktop, I open up my calendar, guess what, it's there, and vice versa. Mail days to sync down below, you can change that. You want to have your mail leave your iPad after a couple of days, you can switch that. I deal with a lot. I have 600 students plus working with staff and administration, so I have mine set to no limit because I want to be able to access my email going back to eternity. And mail folders to push, that basically means it's pushing information out. The server is sending information to your iPad. What do you want it to send? Maybe your inbox isn't it. You can change. Maybe you decide you have an iPad that's only for, tech help requests, and that's a separate folder within your inbox. You can set it up so that it only is pushing out things that are routed to that particular mailbox within your account. This is a mail message that I'm composing from within, and what's great is the sync contacts. And I have more than one account on here. I have my ps10.org account, which is what our school uses. We're a Google Apps school, so we use that internally. But as a member of the Department of Education and somebody who does things outside of this building, I also have my @schools.nyc.gov account. What's great is I have both of those email accounts on here, and I have all my mail, contacts, and calendars synced for both accounts. So you'll notice I have, when I type in the letter A, I get people who are in my personal contact list, everyone from the ps10.org contact list, as well as everyone from the schools.nyc.gov contact list. And I can scroll down that list if I wanted to. And I have little red lines over those emails because I hate to have those people start sending me emails saying, hey, I'm getting all kinds of inquiries because you posted my account. But it's great because you might not know someone's full name. You might have a giant organization. You just start typing in a couple letters, it's going to refresh, and it's going to just keep continually searching within whatever account contacts you have synced. So I actually have 3 main accounts on my iPad. All those contacts from all 3 accounts get shown and worked with the search as I'm typing. Super handy. So we're connected. We're checking our email. We've got our email, it's coming through, we're able to send email. So now let's learn some more. There's a lot going on the iPad. Tons of apps, tons of things to do. You're not going to get every bit of information from me. I don't know every bit of information. I'm constantly learning. How am I doing it? I'm doing it with things like Twitter, Site, and Flipboard. So everyone's heard about Twitter. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on Twitter. It's not just for celebrities anymore. It's not just Ashton Kutcher talking about, what he was doing at the, TCBY or whatever it is. Tons of networking going on, tons of resources. I refer to Twitter as my new RSS feed. Years ago, RSS, real simple syndication, you would sign up and you would have a feed that would come to your inbox that with the headlines, the first line of a news article. You would get hundreds of these every day. I feel like Twitter is exactly that. It's just a little bit cleaner because it becomes searchable, and then you can look at other people's feeds. And I found it extremely valuable. And if you don't want to tweet, that's fine. We have my art teacher here. He's on Twitter, 0 tweets. He's got like 2 followers. I think I'm one of them. He's following like 200 people because he's listening. He's looking at those what are called hashtag searches, the pound sign and then a word after it. Those are 4 searchable, essentially keywords on Twitter where when people post something that's of value to iPads in schools, they might tag it with that iPad ed at the end of it. And then you can do a search and find all things that are related to iPads and education. So it's a great way to see what's out there and see what people are doing. It's fully integrated within the operating system. It is an app, but it's also in there in your general settings, making it very easy to add accounts. Like I have 2 accounts on there. I have my personal one, or not so much my personal one. I don't have a personal one per se. I have the Mr._Kasal one, which is the one I use, but it's all professional related things, all technology and education, information and tweets. For our school, we also have a Twitter account. So I'm able to put both accounts on there so I can monitor and broadcast to both accounts. And I can tweet from either one at the drop of a hat. There's also those apps down below where other apps on my iPad have Twitter functionality. So if I find something on, you'll notice Flipboard and Site are on there. I can find something and I can send it out directly from that app without actually going to my Twitter program. This is what the Twitter interface looks like within when it's opened up, the app. So it's great. Simple, got a timeline, people give a little headline, Mashable, third one down. I think it's a great technology website, so I follow them. CNET, a lot of these different things. You find, you skim through it. I skim through it. A few times a day I'm skimming through it. I see a headline. I'm able to take a look at it. I'm able to click on the link. I can star it as a favorite, so I can mark it as a favorite so I can read it later. And I just find it extremely valuable for finding resources, for finding information. And I think it's a great way to start with an iPad because it gives you a way to see what other people are doing. It gives you an immediate engagement with the iPad without it being a lot of effort. Twitter account's free. Sign up for one. Like I said, you don't even have to say anything. You can just start following educational authors, blogs, technology writers, whatever it is. So now news. News is another great way to learn things. It's another great way to experience the iPad. A lot of news is designing apps that are very good for the iPad. They're designing specific for the interface, for the way it looks, which is great. It's not just reading the newspaper or reading a website within a quote-unquote app. There are apps devoted to news and allow you to choose the content, so you decide what kind of information and what kind of media is coming to you. So Flipboard and Site are 2. I happen to be partial to Flipboard because I've been using it since just about it came out. I've been using it for a couple of years. I think Site's been around a while too, but I've only just gotten it. Very similar to Flipboard. And you'll find that a lot of these apps and a lot of these functions of the iPad, there's multiple ways. There's multiple app developers who are making essentially the same thing, which is fine. Hey, they're both free. I have them both. You download them both. Find which one you like. Maybe you get rid of one. Maybe keep them both there because you know what? They're free and they don't take up a lot of space. It's also great other app-related apps, as redundant as that may sound, like App Shopper and App Advice. App Shopper is great because it allows you to actually see what's available on the iTunes App Store. It allows you to search for apps. It allows you to actually tag them, and it will tell you when they drop in price. It will send you an email. And I've gotten a number of apps through that where they seemed relatively interesting to me at, let's say, 99 cents. They went down to free for one day. I got them. It was free. Or an app seemed really kind of cool at $3.99 and it went down to 99 cents, you buy it. Because if you were contemplating spending $4, hey, $1, if you were almost there for the 4, you're definitely there for the 99 cents. And you want to be able to not have to sit there and watch the prices and look at the App Store every day. You let an app like App Shopper do it for you. App Advice, another free app. You download it, you get to read about apps, see what they do, look at reviews, give yourself ideas of different things you can do. Going back to that earlier slide about what is this thing? Well, what is it for you? Things like Flipboard, news content, App Shopper, App Advice, information about what's out there is going to help you sort of coalesce that vision for yourself. You may have a vision given to you by your school or district saying this is what you're going to use it for. But you know what? There's a lot of ways to tweak it and personalize it, even if your school or district isn't mostly full control of it. And these are ways to give yourself some of that freedom. Because even if your school or district is controlling what's on there, recommend App Advice. It's a way to learn. Recommend Flipboard or Zeit. It's a way to learn. And they're free. They're not costing anything. So here's a quick screenshot of Zeit. Basically, content. Different types of content on that right-hand side. You have sections, topic areas. Allows you to flip through, see what's going on. Basically feeds information from those sources. So at the bottom right, there's that customize button, which will allow me to choose where I'm pulling the information from. Are they just Twitter feeds? Are they coming from standard news sources? Like I said, for those of you familiar with the RSS, the Real Simple Syndication, things like Zeit and Flipboard are essentially doing that in a much more elegant way, no longer giving you just that headline and making you click through. They're actually giving you the very graphic, very enticing visuals right there at your fingertips. And then, of course, you can share these to Twitter if you're into the Twitter thing, which admittedly I am. Again, find it extremely valuable. Here's the App Shopper. Literally every app on the App Store just searches them. That's all it does. And you can see, like I said, like Angry Birds HD, third one down. Price drop from $4.99 to $2.99. So I could have had that under the My Apps wish list, which is on the left-hand side, which is sort of like the third one down. And if I had that on my wish list, I would have got an email that said, hey, guess what? Angry Birds HD just dropped $2. Maybe that made it worth it to me. Or look at that first one at the top, free music download manager. Went from 99 cents to free. How can you beat that? So App Shopper is great. It's a free app, and it allows you to keep track of other apps that are getting discounted. And it's always a little disappointing when you see that the app actually went up in price, which happens because apps get popular. Here's App Advice. So news, reviews, you can actually take a look at things that are happening specifically related to apps in the iPad. So again, if you're not quite sure what this device in your hands is and what you're going to use it for, a great way to figure out is to read what other people are doing with it and how it's gotten here and how it's evolved and what kind of people are pushing the bounds, what you can do with it. And I think these are great apps to help you with that, especially since they're free. So the next thing I would do, I would sync everything. I don't work out of my documents folder on my machine anymore. I use a cloud service. So Dropbox is the one that I use. There's also Box.net. You can utilize iCloud, Apple's, and there's a fee. You get, I think, 5 gigs of storage for free, and then after that it's $9 or $10 a month or something. Dropbox is great. It's free. Box.net is free. And you can share files very easily, collaborate on files, share things back and forth. And since I don't save anything in my documents folder, I save everything into my Dropbox folder, which lives on my desktop, but it syncs up and backs up to their server. And then I have it. I have it on my iPad. I have it on my home machine. So it's online storage. You get 2 gigs for free, but you can invite colleagues. So especially if you're, let's say, a administrator, district level, or technology person, invite everyone in your district, and you will get up to that 16 gigs for free very fast. And it's great. I mean, it takes a lot to fill up 16 gigs, especially if we're talking about memos and documents and very lightweight things like that. And it's great that it starts for free. Now, if you're an enterprise level person, you're a district level person, you might consider Dropbox does offer corporate rates where you can get things like 100 gigs a month for, I think it's $50. And maybe that's something your district or school might look into if you feel virtual storage of your documents with easy collaboration is something that appeals to you. So its benefits just having your stuff everywhere. A lot of apps, especially with Dropbox, we went with Dropbox because it had, at the time, the most integrated apps to go along with it. I know Box.net is kind of making a big surge. I know Google is talking about their, I keep saying Google G Drive, I think it's called, hasn't come around yet. I love Dropbox. A lot of the apps we use integrate quickly and easily with them. Makes it super simple to back up your stuff, share files, have things accessible to you at all times. Actually, our assistant principal has emailed student comments for a report card, but she needed to edit them because the teacher had some, grammar and spelling issues and stuff, but she only had access to her iPad. So we copy and pasted her comments into that plain text app, which is free. The second she saved those things, they were backed up to Dropbox. So when she came into work yesterday, all she did was sat at her desktop, opened up her plain text folder, selected all the files, and printed them out. So with very little effort, she was able to integrate her email, a text app, and cloud storage and getting the information out that she needed. My favorite part about Dropbox is it backs up what you change. So all the files live on your hard drive. You just get them backed up whenever there's a change. You can also be productive. Take notes. There's a number of note-taking apps. I like Audio Note, or Notability rather, sorry. And I also like Goodreader. Notability is great because you can actually record audio while you're writing, which is very handy. You can upload those recorded note-taking files to Dropbox. So you see it allows you to highlight, allows you to record, allows you to add photos, you can type, you can export it to different places, you can email the document. Goodreader is great because you can basically view anything. You can write directly on a PDF file. It's great for paperless. We have teachers who do the rubrics on them, so whenever they're grading a student, they're just, instead of circling on the rubric paper, they're circling in Goodreader and then emailing that rubric to the parent directly from the app. So it's instant. You don't have to recreate documents. You can use something like Dropbox to bring in documents you already have. Everything is digitized, and it's on the app. So you can download stuff to Goodreader, take it on the subway, take it up to the mountains, whatever it is, and you can work on it without actually being connected to the internet. It's one of those apps that's $5 that we highly recommend our staff get, and everyone's bought it, and everyone has found value in it. Here's a quick screenshot of an observation form. So I can actually type, highlight, free write, put text on it. There's my signature. There's the date, check mark in the top right. Looks exactly as if it did, as if I had actually written on a piece of paper. I can email it out, put it back in Dropbox. So now if you're feeling bold as we're finishing up this webinar, maybe you're all good, maybe you're all set up. What are you going to do next? You can get remote control with a number of what's called VNC apps, like Remoter. Virtual network computing. LogMe and Ignition is one, Mocha. I have a whole list right there. I like Remoter because currently it's on sale for $1. I bought it for $1, and it's gone up over the years to $4, but today I checked, it's down back to $1. Basically gives you remote control of your machine, which is very handy. So you can connect to your desktop, access files, you can connect to a smartboard attached computer, and use the smartboard tools that are on the desktop. So it's handy. I'm also starting to get more and more into those last two that are actually on there, the SplashTop Remote and SplashTop Whiteboard. SplashTop Whiteboard is very interesting because it's $19, and it puts the whiteboard tools in the app, so you can actually annotate on a desktop screen without a smartboard, without an interactive whiteboard. So that's a handy tool. If you have a projector, a laptop, and a flat wall, you can actually annotate that desktop with SplashTop Whiteboard. So that's handy, and I downloaded that and I've been experimenting with that, and I find great value in that one. Remoter is great because it's inexpensive. Basically use anything. If you're walking around your building and you need to check something on your desktop, you can access it. It's extremely handy, and it's $1. So it's some tips, tricks, and tutorials, as this is sort of an introductory thing. So we have our own website, ps10ipads.wikispaces.com. That's what we use for all our PDs, for ongoing PDs, for collaboration, to support our teachers so that if they have questions, they can go there first. SimpleHelp.net is amazing. It's essentially a blog, but it's a blog of tutorials, and they're great tutorials. That Hidden Keys link is awesome. There I was doing a PD on an intro, sort of a second steps to the iPad. There are 71, at least 71, there might be more now, hidden keys on the keyboard that'll help you make things go faster. That last link also has some other hidden punctuation tips and tricks. So to summarize, get yourself connected. Get on the internet. Sync up your communication. Get your mail, your contacts, your calendars. Get connected to your colleagues. And then shop. Try some free apps. Download them. But hey, spend $1 or $2. Try some of these out. There's a lot of light versions, L-I-T-E, which basically means it's a free version of an app that costs money. So you know maybe the light version is free, the paid version is 99 cents. Maybe you download both to get a sense of what the differences are between the two. Because there are a lot of value in some of the paid apps. And then sync for work. Figure out what your cloud storage solution is. And your school or district might already have a cloud storage solution and you're already set up on it. And then it's just a matter of downloading the app. Start being productive. Get apps like Goodreader or Notability, and you can start digitizing everything. You can start going paperless. And learn. Use sites like Twitter, Zeit, and Flipboard to figure out what else is going on and how else you can use this device to best suit your needs. Because I know what works for us in this building, but what I know is not necessarily going to work for everybody. And a lot of what we do is just based on things I've learned on places like Twitter, Zeit, and Flipboard. So in conclusion, 500,000 apps. There's no rush. Get comfortable. You have it. It's new to you. Do some basic things. Write some emails. Surf the web. Download a couple apps. Take your time with it. Because pretty soon you're going to realize that it's an amazing device. It's really going to most likely help you out. And you're never going to be able to live without it. So leaving enough time, hopefully, for some questions. That's my contact information. And like I said, I do put it up there because I'm more than willing to answer questions. One of the apps I did mention earlier, which is listed on there, which is Diigo, D-I-I-G-O, basically shared online bookmarks. And if you go to Diigo and you can search for me, you can see my online bookmarks. I tried to not get overly heavy with the apps and the sort of what you can do. We could do one of these intro to iPad things for hours and barely scratch the surface. But you can check out my online bookmarks. That's the link to our website, the PS10 iPads website again. Like I said, that's what we use as our internal, it's a public website, but it's basically our internal professional development and resource site for staff. And then that last one is just my own lab page that my students use for assignments and parents use to contact me, but you're more than welcome to check it out as well. So I hope that was valuable. I hope that helped. And yeah, 10 or so minutes for anything you want to ask.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to first actually ask you for a favor on behalf of many of the audience members. If you wouldn't mind, and I'll give you kind of a break to do this. I have some questions I can answer real quick while you're doing this. Maybe copy and paste some of those longer links, kind of those I think there were 2 main pages where you had kind of a list of links, and just paste those links into the back channel. Could you do that for us real quick? And while you're doing that, I'm actually going to take the screen back and go over some info really quick, and then I do have some other questions for Chris at the end. We have had a lot of questions come in, but if you still have a question for Chris, please let me know what that is, and we'll see if we can squeeze in a couple extra at the end here. I also want to make sure all of our members realize that we do have a lot of additional resources on iPads inside the community for you all. So I know this was a wonderful foundation here, but you know, most people, when it comes to iPads, once you get going with the iPad, you just want more and more. So when that happens, we do have more materials for you inside the community. I think we have over 23 webinars inside the community on iPads and mobile learning, and this was just my top 7 that I put up here. Some of our most popular, which some of these are by Chris himself. We also have a couple sessions more for just basics getting started, 20 free iPad apps. If you're looking for some new free apps to try out, you might want to look at that one. And I just want to show you really quickly how to access these. So first you want to go into the community. So I'm going to sign in really quick and just show you where these are. And you want to click on webinars. And then you want to do a keyword search, for iPad, and that will pull up pretty much everything we have tagged with that term there. And you can see we have 23 results in here. And if you're looking for another webinar by Chris, he's actually done about 5 or 6, I believe, for us, and his will say presented by Mr. Casal. So if you're looking for specific webinars by him, those will all come up under the iPad tag as well. And then you can watch on demand straight from the community. So just click the watch now. And I know we've gotten a few questions from, I think, some guests today about getting certificates of completion for this session as well. You can do that as a community member. Just go into your profile and click View Report, and that's where you'll find your certificates of completion. The on-demand webinars and certificates of completion are for community members exclusively. But again, members, here is my recommendations for Top 7. I think Chris did 2 of these, but all of his webinars were fabulous, so I really could have listed all of Chris's here, but then the rest of our presenters would have felt left out. So anyway, thanks again. I also want to mention that we do have a discount if you'd like to join us inside the community and you're not a member yet. You can join us at this 40% off rate, $177 for the 1-year membership. You'll get the training time certificates, all of the on-demand webinar recordings, over 200 in there, all of the ebooks, workbooks, additional resources, and you can do that here at simpleK12.com/TLC/special. And then last but not least, I hope you connect with Chris inside the community on Twitter and on his website, and join us at some upcoming webinars, simpleK12.com/webinars. And very important, I know lots of you were asking for more information about this session. The back channel discussion had some great note-taking and chat going on, so take a note of this back channel. Even if you can't take a look right now, jot it down, bookmark it, come back to it a little bit later. And a first question for you, Chris. Tracy's asking, what's the best way to get my documents from my PC to my iPad without emailing it to myself? And I was thinking you would suggest Dropbox, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, and the one caveat is that Dropbox, you can't edit a document within Dropbox on the iPad, but it's very handy to at least have visual access to all of them. But like I said, once you have Dropbox set up, if you needed to, let's say, annotate or sign a document, like actually when I do these, I have to sign contracts with SimpleK12. They email me these PDFs. I save them to my Dropbox folder, then I open them up on the iPad in Goodreader, which is synced to my Dropbox folder, and I sign the contracts right on Goodreader, and then I email them straight from Goodreader back. So it's sort of integrating multiple apps to achieve that. But as I said, I live in Dropbox. Everything is saved there because it allows me to access anywhere and allows me to integrate with a wide variety of other apps.
Great. Another question from Maureen. Do you need protection software for the iPad?
By protection software, we're talking about virus software?
I think like virus protection or spamware type stuff.
No. One of the nice things about Apple's very restrictive ideology is that they have to approve every app on the App Store. And yes, some malicious apps have gotten through, but for the most part, since every app has to be approved by Apple, they test them and vet them. And there are currently no known cases that I'm aware of web-based viruses affecting the mobile operating system. So no, you don't need to worry about that. Apple's closed environment is essentially, the goal is to take care of that for you.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. We did have a few questions about that. And we had a couple questions about just how the cloud syncing works. If, for example, a teacher and some students all have iPads that are synced to the same account. If a teacher makes changes to the account, will all of the iPads automatically sync, or how does that work?
So essentially you're saying if I have like a classroom set and they're all tied to one thing?
Yes.
Yeah, and what you can do is you can definitely set it up like that, or when you're in your settings, you can just update the operating system, but from an operating system standpoint. But if you're working on the apps, those apps will update automatically, or you can restrict them so the teacher might just have to walk around and do the password. What I'm experimenting with is Apple's new software for doing that on their server. Apple's making it easier to do that, and they have a new program. Let me just double check. I believe it's called Configurator, and what that does is that basically allows you to, yeah, it's called Apple Configurator, and it's free, and it allows you to essentially take, let's say, your classroom computer, set up names and permissions and settings for the iPads, sync all the iPads to, let's say, that computer. So it's not the cloud, but then you can sit at your computer and push out apps and change settings remotely. You essentially creating your own cloud, so to speak. So that's one option.
Great. And Denise is asking, can you connect your iPad is there a way to view what's happening on your iPad on your computer or interactive whiteboard?
So the iPad 2 and the new iPad, there's a little connector that's like a VGA connector, so you can plug an iPad directly into a projector, and that will project on the screen. But that's all it's doing, it's just projecting. You can't project it and then stand at your whiteboard and annotate on the iPad because the smartboard can't connect to the iPad. You can just project. Now, there is a new program that's out called Reflection, which allows you to basically wirelessly put your iPad screen on your desktop. And I mean, if you want, I can show you that real fast. So that would allow you to use more of those screen casting type of apps to record what's going on the iPad, or it would allow you to use, say, the Smartboard's notebook software to annotate over and then sort of save out a Smartboard notebook file. Do you want me to fire that up real fast, Kimberly?
Yeah, we can try that out. We do have a couple minutes here. Are you ready for the screen?
Yep.
Okay, I'll give you the screen back.
So this app is called Reflection, and it's new. It's $15 to buy, but you can try it for 10 minutes to see if it works. And what it does is it works with the AirPlay. So when you're in your iPad, you have this little AirPlay icon, sort of where your volume things are within the software.
Which means you need to have the iPad 2 again. Just want to clarify.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So like I said, I'm just sort of learning it and doing it now. Let's see if it's going to, sometimes the school's network gets funky with what you try to do with these things. But essentially it would allow you to, where is it? I guess it's not showing, I apologize, but it basically would mirror it. And if you had, it should show up right here with the device in the center.
Well, it may be a conflict with the webinar software too. I don't know.
It might be. But yeah, check out Reflection. Download it. It's for the Mac only, I believe, and you can download it for free. It'll give you 10 minutes at a time to test it out. So you can test it out to see if that's the type of thing that you could then use inside of, say, like a smart notebook software environment to annotate sort of on top of an iPad visual. So yeah, I think there's a conflict with the webinar software and my screen resolution. I think I'm trying to do too much at once.
Okay. And I guess I'll go ahead and pull the screen back then. Yeah. And a final question for you, Chris. With a classroom set of iPads, with a classroom set of iPads synced to one account, do I have to worry about personal information like contacts being shared with students on their iPads? That's coming from Becky.
No, so it's completely, there's a lot of structure. We have a cart downstairs in our science rooms where they're iPad 1s, and we've basically done this from the beginning, so they're very old, and they're well used. What we did was we set them up in a cart, and we have a laptop connected to them that was syncing them because they weren't able to sync through the cloud. And what I did was, within the settings of the iPads, I set the restrictions. Inside of your settings, you can set levels of restrictions. So, for instance, ability to download an app, you can turn that off. Ability to change the setting, you can turn that off. And what we did was we set the iPads up without email accounts. They're just iPads. Any app that we want to put on them, it goes through that laptop that we have in that cart. So at the time, it was a little bit of a pain because you had to plug in every single one to update and whatnot. Now with iOS 5, I've updated all the systems and I'm moving it to the cloud. All the restrictions are still there, where it's going to prompt you for a password anytime you try to do something, and it's essentially a restricting password. And I'm the only one that knows that, myself and the principal. So if a student were to try to do something, it would basically say, you're not allowed to do that. Or if it's a different setting, it would say, what's the password, essentially an administrator password, to unlock that setting. And what I'm actually starting to do is I'm starting to play with that Apple configurator software, which is not cloud syncing. I'd be syncing that student cart, and I'm going to sync that student cart to that laptop, and I'm going to use Apple configurator, because once all those 20 iPads are updated and put into the Apple configurator software, I can push out remotely, like my own little cloud, updates. So anytime an app downloads or anytime I want to download an app, I download it to the laptop, put it into the configurator, and then push it out. I realize it sounds kind of complicated. It's sort of a little bit more of a not an entry-level iPad webinar. But yeah, there's ways to do it. There's multiple ways you can do it, where basically a student has a device that they can't do anything on except for use the apps you want them to use and go to the places you want them to go to. And you can have an Apple iPad without an iTunes account on it if it's set up that way. You can have it without an email account. You can have it just with apps that you push out remotely. But like I said, that's a little bit more advanced than a
well, to end with hopefully a simple, easy answer question here. Can you use iCloud with the iPad 1?
If you update the operating system to iOS 5.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being such an active audience. Thanks, Chris, for a fabulous presentation. We are out of time today. I know we've had a lot coming in. We had, almost 1,000 people on today's live webinar, so a lot of questions were coming in. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to all of them today, but I encourage you to connect with Chris further to get your questions answered. He has offered even his email up earlier, which that is in the back channel, his email as well. So that was kind of bold of him, I think. So please connect with him further if you're looking for some more answers. Thank you again, Chris, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.